Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show. Meet the trusted experts who will give you straight answers and will help guide you on the path of later life care. Now, here's your host, founder, caregiver, and CEO, Suzanne Newman.
And welcome back, everyone, to Answers for Elders Radio Network, here with our new partner, Real Estate 55 Plus, Juli Anne Gibson, founder and CEO. And Juli Anne, this has been a very enlightening time to learn about the service that you provide our seniors. And obviously, you're in the pulse of the market out there. You know, what's going on with our seniors? I know I get a million phone calls from families and, throughout the year, we're concerned about mom. She's staying in her house. She's got way too much stuff. I live elsewhere. I don't know how we're going to do this. And I'm sure that's a big part of it. Is it not?
It's huge. And when you talk about trends with seniors and housing, we're finding more and more that seniors are waiting until there's a crisis that happens, or really they haven't explored all their options. And so by the time we start working with them, really the only option for them is to leave their current home and move someplace else. That's what we find. Most of our partners that we work with that provide senior housing, retirement, assisted living, or memory care, that's also the trend that they're seeing, is that people are waiting longer before they make a change.
Well, and we had done a previous episode on fall prevention. And I think about how many accidents could have been prevented if certain things were taken care of in advance. Were grab bars put in the shower in time, those types of clutter out of the way, throw rugs off the floor, proper lighting in place. And, we talk about that a lot on our podcast, but you probably see it firsthand, do you not?
We do see it firsthand when we teach our Aging with Choice workshops, and then we have an opportunity, someone invites us into their home. It's amazing what you don't see when you live in your own home. So when you have somebody with fresh eyes coming in, taking a look at it, we can see all of the possible hazards in somebody's home. That includes not just the house itself, but someone's physical presence. So oftentimes people are dehydrated or malnourished, or their balance is off. And so they're not, they're not taking care of themselves in the way that they could, so they could live independently longer.
Right. And not only that, but I think the other thing is that they may be furniture walking and not even realizing it, that they're, hanging on to pushing against a wall, or, to get up a stairs, they might be hanging onto a railing really hard, and maybe the railing's loose. I've seen things like that things need to be repaired, but they think, oh, someday I'll do it. What do you think holds people back? Is it pride? Is it
I think
expense?
I think a lot of it's not knowing. It's just the not knowing, the unknown.
Okay.
And I think in the United States, we really pride ourselves on independence, right? On being independent. And a lot of people, when we're working with them, when we're teaching workshops, one of the questions we ask is, have you made a plan for housing and aging? And overwhelming, we hear people say, I want to stay in my home until you take me out feet first. And I always say, what's the plan for your being able to stay in your home, your current home? And what we find is a lot of times a senior is only living in maybe 25, 35% of their home.
That's true.
And the reason they don't want to move is because they don't know how they could possibly do that. And oftentimes when we come in, and we can show them, these are the options available to you, and this is how you could do it, it's a relief for people. Our goal is that someone make good decisions and proactive decisions about housing and aging.
Yes. And I think too, with, just how people are, like you said, they're not aware. But I think the other thing is, and it's just the fear of change. It's like, there's this feeling of, if they're already feeling vulnerable as it is, right? They're losing, maybe they can't do the things they used to do. I can't do the things that I used to do. But the thing is I feel like a lot of times what I run into is this feeling of, it's like stepping off into the unknown. It's that feeling of, I don't know where I'm going. I don't feel safe in this process. And so, it's like you hang on to even that which does not serve you, rather than, stepping off into the unknown.
Yeah.
So
And you have to look back though, Suzanne, just 75 years ago, we
mhm,
didn't live as long as we do now.
true.
And we also lived multi-generationally.
Hmm.
So if we lived multi-generationally, then we had family members that were helping and supporting us.
Hmm.
Really, the trend started really the 1950s and 60s, where, the senior person moved to a Rambler or to a senior community, but we didn't have the medications that we have nowadays. So we
No.
died younger and it was quicker. We didn't have this period where we were an elder, an
True.
older senior than that we do right now. So we haven't even explored all these options that are available to us. It's only
Right.
now that we're looking at human development over 65, which is a time of reflection. It's a time and an opportunity to give legacy to your family. But
Absolutely.
for so many of us, when we're talking about the silver season of our life, people always think of the end, which is death. They're not, what about that space in between that can be
Right.
really fulfilling for people?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing is if you're still living in your family home.
Mhm.
You've got stuff around you that doesn't serve you, but you don't necessarily know how to deal with it. I just went through, having professional organizers come in, and they spent 2 full days with me, 2 people. So, how many hours did we go through? We took 3 loads to the dump,
Wow.
3,
Yeah.
in the back of my SUV. And you don't even think about all the stuff that you have. I have made probably 10 trips to donate stuff,
Sure.
and it feels so good. And the thing is, I remember that feeling of fear. It was like all of a sudden, like, oh, I don't know if I can part with this. There's this feeling. The other thing is, I hung on to stuff that was my mother's, and I felt guilt because I couldn't, even though I didn't use it, I felt like I couldn't part with it because I would betray her memory. And so it was like crazy till finally it's like to have a professional sit down with you and say, okay, Suzanne, are you ever going to use this? Well, I said someday maybe
Okay.
I will. Really? So how many more? You're now 67 years old, going to be 68 next year. Where are you going to go after this?
Yep.
And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I'm not going to be that same individual. I'm going to have to start, like you said at the beginning, you spend the last third of your life getting rid of stuff. And that's what I did. And it's like, I haven't even thought of the stuff once it's gone. I don't even think about it now.
Absolutely. And for those of us that raised families,
Mm-hmm.
now, we're empty nesters, you don't need as many dishes, sheets, and towels.
No.
And there are people out there in the world that don't have those things.
No.
And if you can give those items to other people, it is a very gratifying feeling. A lot of people don't think that way. They're like, okay, my pantry's always been full with these things, or my closet's been full with all these items. I don't use them anymore. I used to use them, but I don't any longer. Oftentimes it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't even think about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And for those adult children that are listening, I always say, when mom says, hey, do you want our china, our crystal, or our silver? Gladly accept it. Gladly accept it. Those possessions for someone that's older than 60, collecting china was part of the early years of their lives, and it has such an emotional attachment. So when mom or dad come over, use the china. Be thankful that was something that it was pulled out on holidays or a special birthday. And they're knowing that you still honor it and use it will be
part of
so
them.
meaningful to them. Absolutely.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I did exactly that. My mom, I would bring her over to my house when she was in assisted living. And I don't care if we had macaroni and cheese, I would pull out her china. And my mother would say, you love my dishes. Talk about joy that it gave her.
Yeah.
And what was a big deal for me to, to pull it out of another cupboard, and to honor her that way. And it's like, you know what, after they're gone, do with what you want with it. But I agree with you. This is something that helps to honor them as long as they live. And, you might, if they have a service for 12, keep 4 plates or whatever that is. But the point of the matter being is have that because it's important to them. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And there is, when we, meet with a family and they are downsizing, and we are going to be, hosting an estate sale for them. And we help them pack and sort the items to move to their new place. is there's a huge recycle, repurpose movement that is a trend now in our country. So there are people that I don't want to go to and buy something new. I want to repurpose,
especially our millennials.
Yeah, huge, furniture.
They're totally into that.
And that is such for our clients when they know that somebody has purchased an item, they feel, oh my gosh, it's great that it's going to someone that's going to love it. I love it. It's not ending up in the landfill. That I think is huge for so many of our seniors, that they know that the things that they've collected, somebody else is going to use.
So true. And it saves the environment. It saves on everything. So what you're doing is you're creating a legacy that people will enjoy. And that's the beauty of that. And obviously, I'm just curious, in this process, what are some of the biggest questions that they ask you?
You mean if they're having to make a decision?
Yeah. Like,
oh, I think for a lot of people, they have a misconception about what's available to them. So if somebody is looking at, I don't want to own something any longer, that doesn't make the most sense for me, I'm going to move to a retirement community. They haven't toured them, or they haven't toured them in a really long time. And there's so many options that are available. That's a big, and I think the money is the big piece. So if somebody owns their home outright, they have property taxes and home, and they have home insurance.
But they might be cash poor.
They are cash poor. That's the big piece. So when you can look at apples to apples, you don't have the maintenance of your home any longer. You're not paying utilities. You may not be paying for transportation, for some
less in utilities, and you're buying less food, because you're probably, if you're going to independent retirement living, you not have to cook and things like that. So that's the thing. So do you have any stories that you could share about how people have gone through this process?
Absolutely. We have a family that we just recently worked with. They were referred to us from a financial advisor that we work with. Daughter lived in Maine. Parents lived out here in the Pacific Northwest. Mom fell and had an injury, went to the hospital, went to rehab, and it really wasn't going to be feasible for her to go back to their 3,600 square foot home. And we met with the dad, with the husband, and we had on our computer in FaceTime, the daughter that lived in Maine, asked all the discovery questions, about finances, health, medical, what they really loved doing. They love going out to eat and being close to the water. And we realized and recognized, walking in their home with them, that they literally lived in 3 rooms. That was all they lived in. And we put a roadmap together for them. So we recommended and referred them to a senior housing advisor that toured them with communities. We had them meet with one of our attorneys so they could put their legal matters together.
Perfect.
And we put together an estate sale for them. So we went and looked at the space that they were moving to, moved their things in. We met them at a local furniture store because their home had large pieces. Smaller pieces. So we went with them to pick out some things, got them all set up, did an estate sale, did some repair work to the home so that they could maximize their proceeds. And from start to finish, it took about 3 months before their home was sold.
Amazing.
So for them, they were really concerned about how long are we going to live, or are we going to have enough money? I think that's one of the questions. And
3,200 square foot house, I'm sure they did quite well.
They made quite a bit of money, and they owned it outright. So making decisions about how are we going to stretch this for as long as we need, that was part of the process. So with their financial advisor, they made some really good decisions on their budget and their expenses. So 15, 20 years, no problem for them.
That's
all figured out. And they moved to a retirement community that they can live independently right now. And if they need to access assisted living services, this particular community would offer that in their current home.
Wow. And you know what? In the meantime, how do we reach you? Because we're going to go to a little bit more things talking about estates. Great. And so, Juli Anne, how do we reach you?
You can call us at 1-800-964-1553, 24/7. We have a live receptionist that answers our phone. Or you can visit us on our website at realestate55plus.com.
Perfect. And Juli Anne and we're going to be right back. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.